Welcome, guys, to ILWPOD. I'm your host, Justin Wright. Today, we are here with the DWA and A4 champion, Grayson Pierce. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, as you can see.
Double champ. What's that feel like?
Oh my gosh, dude, it feels great, but at the same time, it's a lot of pressure. I just want to be. I not only want to be the best wrestler on the card, but I also want to be an example for everyone looking up.
Okay. Um, Off camera, we talked a little bit about the lineage of the A4 championship. What does that mean to you, like personally?
Well, so this is the second title, the second version of the belt, but Austin Theory held it. AR Fox held the belt. People that I looked up to held the belt, like Rico, Blackjack, people like that. So it just, to me, it means that I've been entrusted to basically be the guy at the fore to show all the new guys kind of what they need to know and where they need to go, and I help train there and stuff like that. So it's a lot of pressure, but I love it because I just want to help as many people as I can. Anyone that walks through that door.
Okay. Um, so A4 is AR Fox's training school, right?
Correct.
What's that like working underneath him? He's got a quite a repertoire under his belt.
Um, Fox is probably the most laid back and like coolest guy you'll ever know, especially when it comes to training. We take training very seriously, but we're also not like other training schools. We don't treat it like a boot camp. I mean, we we just have fun and we teach each other, and we pride ourselves on what we do every day.
Okay. Um, when would you say, like, as a kid or growing up, you decided that pro wrestling was the route you was going to take?
So, I actually found wrestling like a little bit later than most people do. I found it when I was like probably like 12. And I know that doesn't sound very old, but like when I thought wrestling was cool, everyone thought it was like, oh, that's lame, that's boring, that's like it's fake, stuff like that. So like um I wasn't super open about me liking wrestling, but the moment I decided to be a wrestler was, I don't think I'll ever forget this. I was sitting at my um, kitchen countertop while my mom was making food, and I opened up a college assignment. I was going to UNG at the time, and I remember just looking at the assignment and thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And I shut the computer and said, I'm done. And my mom was super thrilled to hear that. We had a whole long conversation that ended with me basically being like, I want to be a wrestler. And she said, make it happen. So I looked up schools and decided on checking out the A4 and just fell in love with it.
What what was the like transition like from like being a student and then getting into wrestling? Like, what does that look like? Being an average Joe to now you're going into training.
So um, I had a little bit of an athletic background, so it wasn't like the hardest transition for me. Um, a lot of guys that like don't have any athletic background, have never done a sport, it's very hard for them to go from basically doing nothing to being seen as a super athlete. Um, like I did taekwondo, which helped out a lot. I'm a black belt. I did football, soccer. I even did fencing, which didn't really help me at all. But the transition, I would say, um, I came into wrestling when I was 19. I was like literally a child walking in there, and it was hard because everyone was so much older than me, and they still are. Like, I have guys that come in day ones, and we call them kid. We're like, "You're doing good, kid." They're all older than me. Like, I'm like the youngest guy there, and I'm okay with that. But I would definitely say I didn't get a lot of respect walking in. I had to earn it, and I earned it with chair shots and kicks to the head and sucking it up and showing that I'm here to stay. And they all know that now, but at the time it was rough. It was very rough being that young kid coming in and um, trying to prove something.
So you mentioned doing other sports, and what's it like? What's it like the difference in like training for those sports compared to wrestling? Like, is there a big difference, would you say?
Um, I would say so. Uh, like, well, one, most of those sports were outside, so you had to deal with training in the heat or the cold. Um, and at the A4, like we're just in a warehouse with no AC, which I guess could be seen as worse. Uh, but it's weird because like in football, you're training like routes and like speed and how to tackle people and stuff like that. In Taekwondo, you're training like forms and basically how to land your kicks, powers, stuff like that. And then soccer, it's the same thing, routes, blocking, guarding, things like that. Wrestling, it's more of like an art. Like you get your basics down, you get them really, really good, and then you start working on your bigger moves like your moonsaults and your 450s and stuff like that. But until you get those basics basically perfect, you're not getting you're not getting your moonsaults and stuff like that.
So, like you mentioned, going from basics to more complicated stuff. What's once you know, or your trainer knows that like you've got the basics down pat. What's it like trying to build that move set, that character, and stuff like that?
So Fox, he always told me when I started, because everyone starts, so like, how do you do 450? How do you do moonsault? This and this and this. Um, Fox didn't teach me how to do any of my big moves. He probably like helped a little bit, but he didn't teach me how to do it. I figured it out, and then if I had trouble, I went to people that did do those moves, or I did ask Fox for help. Um, he always tells me the hardest thing that he's ever going to teach me is a headlock takeover. Because basically all the basics, once you know that, everything else just kind of falls into place. I remember my first finisher was a split-legged moonsault, and he didn't teach me anything how to do that. I figured it out on my own, and I landed on my head a lot. But one day, I finally hit that moonsault, and that I found my first finisher, and that's just kind of how it's been.
Oh, when did you have your first match?
Uh, so I've been wrestling for 2 years. So 2022. Couldn't tell you the month, but I know that I had my first match like recorded like 3 months into me training,
Okay.
which some takes a little bit longer, some people it takes a little bit less. I know that Austin Theory, like he trained for like 5, 6 months, came in and won the A4 title on his debut. So, it's very different for everyone. I had a humidity, which was like our NXT at the time debut. And then I made my actual debut on the Thursday nights in front of a live crowd against Larry Lazard, who was the tag team champion at the time. And I rolled him up for a victory. So that was very big for me.
So, like, starting somewhere in A4, what's it like, getting out and spreading your wings throughout the indie scene?
Um, for me, it kind of found me. like my indie debut, I know most guys like I remember I was under the impression that if I keep wrestling at the four, that someone will reach out to me. That's not really how it is. I kind of explain it to people like if you were to start a band, um, you kind of have to reach out and get bookings on your own, and that's kind of how it is. I remember my first booking was because another wrestler, his opponent called out, and my indie debut match was at DWA, who I'm the champion of right now. Um, they, I had a Falls Count Anywhere match, 20 minutes. I went through a table off the stage. I had firecrackers thrown at me. I had a beer slammed on my head. So your debut match might be 5 minutes in a pre-show match, or it might be a 20-minute Falls Count Anywhere. You just got to find those bookings. And it may be at a super big indie or a little redneck indie in the back country with 10 people. You don't know.
So, like, as a performer, do you prefer those like crazy falls count anywhere matches or your standard, one-on-one contest?
It depends who I'm in the ring with, really. Because there are some people I know can go 20 minutes and I don't have to drag them along with me. And then there's some people where I'm like, I would rather just have a regular match with you, because I don't have to carry you the whole way through. Um, I've gotten better with helping out people because um, wrestle a lot of new guys now because help I help train at the four a little bit. But you know, iron sharpens iron, so I would uh like there's some people like Hendrix and Jay Tyler and people like that I know I could go 20 minutes with and we'll both be fine. But there's a lot of new guys that I'm like, I would never have an Iron Man match with you. You know what I mean?
Is like looking at the indie scene right now, it's probably, I don't want to say hot as it's ever been because there was a time where it was extremely hot, but it's getting up there. Is there anybody that you got your eye on as far as like, hey, I'd like to face that guy?
Oh, there's so many. And there's so many that I know too. Um, I'm trying to think. I have wrestled Rico Gonzalez a few times on the
Okay.
indies. It's always fun wrestling him. Teriyaki is pretty big now, and I know I'm just naming guys from the four. Um, but I wouldn't really say there's really someone that I'm like, ooh, I want to wrestle him, because until I really meet the guy, I don't know if we have like a lot of chemistry.
Fair enough. Um, I guess on the other end of that question, there's guys from the past or legends or stuff like that. Is there anybody you like might have watched that now is like, hey, like that would be cool to be in the ring with them?
Yeah, I got this tattoo right here that kind of looks like Shawn Michaels. So I think like to fight Shawn Michaels. That'd be sick. AJ is one of my favorites. Um, I'm trying to think who else. Adam Cole. Um,
You kind of look like Adam Cole.
I like him, baby. Um, but, you know, I don't know. I just kind of like those small, like fast guys, really.
Okay. You've mentioned Austin Theory a lot. Would that be somebody you'd be interested in going at it with?
Yeah, he'd probably throw me around a little bit, but I'd have fun, you know?
His style, I feel like you might be able to clash with. That might be good.
Yeah, he's like that big guy who moves oddly fast. So we'd figure something out.
Okay. Um, I like to on here do like a little bit of like a character analysis. So like if you could explain your wrestling character, in a short statement, what would that be?
Well, it depends how I am portrayed.
Okay.
Grayson Pierce is as a baby face, he is the ultimate underdog. He never quits. He kicks out of everything but the finish. That's what I always tell people. he doesn't he's headstrong. He doesn't know when to stop. I would say he has a martial arts background. I like to incorporate that. I always kick people in the face. Um, so that's me as a good guy, really. But as that heel, um, I like to portray myself as that cocky, like still martial arts. Like I like to be my first version of my character. I wanted to be like opposite Mike Bailey. I wanted to be like an asshole Mike Bailey.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah, which that might come one day, but as of right now, that's not what it is. But I'm just I kind of act like I don't want to be there. I think I'm better than not only the fans and the wrestlers, but I'm bigger than this promotion. I take a lot of inspiration from RVD and ECW, where he's like, "This place is a dump. I don't want to be here. I'm better than this." Um, I take a lot of inspiration from Sean and DX being an asshole to everyone. Even I even take it from Swerve and AR Fox. Like Fox when he was heel in Lucha Underground, he was just that I'm the best one here and no one can tell me otherwise.
Okay. Um, which would you say you prefer, being heel or babyface?
Oh, heel for sure. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
I always like that answer because like I don't know, as a kid I was always the kid that liked the bad guy. Like even
Oh
like
yeah.
I grew up in like the '09 CM Punk was like straight edge society, long hair, looked like Jesus. Like and
Hmm.
everybody else hated him and I was like, yeah, I'd let him shave me bald. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, in a heartbeat. Or I Besides that though, like I was a big John Cena fan. Still Punk
Hmm.
the pipe bomb. And then I was like, once again, here we go. I'm back with the heels. I gotta like Punk now. Like,
Oh, well, the goal is a heel. Every heel might not admit it, but the goal is to be that cool heel where you get cheered, but you can still get away with being an asshole. That's the dream.
so like, would you like to like maybe try to explain like the difference working a match, whether it's face or heel? Because I know there's definitely a big difference in dynamic.
Um, yeah, so like as a heel, you're almost like the leader of the match in a way.
Okay.
Um, you you kind of like if something goes wrong, the heel almost like directs the match, and brings it back on track because as a baby face, you can't like kick the bad guy in the stomach and then put him in a hold because the baby face is trying to win, the bad guy is trying to slow the match down. So, um, as a bad guy, like, or as a heel, you're almost looking for, um, like if a mistake happens, you're almost looking for ways to like cut them down and then get back on track. Like there have been times that I'm like, hey, we got this spot, but if it goes wrong, I'm gonna do this, right? Um, but as a baby face, like, you know, if something goes wrong, you can still grab them and go for something, but the heel's gonna cut you off. Um, the baby face, their goal is to create sympathy for themselves so that the crowd cheers for them, and gets behind them. Because if no one's cheering for the baby face, then what's the point of this match, really?
Fair enough. Um, so like I had a question. I'm sorry. I'm a little new at this. I'm not gonna lie. um, a character like being face or heel, how does that affect like your move set and how you like? you do things in a match. Like I know I've seen a lot of you, like a little bit of your stuff online, and like you do typically have that fast paced like style. What's it like trying to slow it down and going against that?
As a, you know, a bunch of old heads, like a bunch of old style wrestlers. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm saying wrestling has almost like evolved, in my opinion, to where they say, "Oh, as a heel, you can't do cool stuff because then the crowd will cheer for you." I don't think that's true. Um, I think you can do high flying and fast paced stuff in a heel way to still have them like boo you. Um, I think the only difference between face and heel in my move set really is that I just do things with different intentions. So
Okay.
like if I were to hit a brain buster as a face, it would almost be like out of nowhere and like, oh, I got it, one, two, oh fuck it. But like as a heel, it would almost be like you run at me and I'm in the corner and I move and you hit your face on the buckle. So like I almost like cheated to get it and then I hit it like really aggressively, right? So my intention would be like I'm trying to hurt you almost. But
I like that
uh,
explanation.
that's what I would say. My move set doesn't really change. The only time my move set really changes is like the size of my opponent. So like if I'm wrestling a really small guy, I bust out all my heavyweight moves that I never get to use. Um, everyone at training always jokes because I'm always working on like my heavyweight moves and I'm not a big guy. They're always like, "Man, you were meant to be a super heavyweight." Because I always am trying stuff like that. But when I'm fighting like a bigger guy, I'm always using my high flying stuff. So that's really the only time my move set ever changes, really.
So like as far as the style goes, what would you say like your style is that you try to stick with?
I'm a high flyer striker. So I have I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. So I always keep to kicking, striking, hitting him in the face, gut, foot, wherever I can hit him. Um, and then like my high flying stuff. I love springboarding. I'm not very flippy. Like I don't do a lot of 450s and stuff like that. I have a few in my arsenal. Like I have a split legged moonsault. I can do a normal moonsault, whisper in the wind, stuff like that. But for my high flying stuff, it's normally like a springboard like DDT or I do dives and stuff like that. Like my dive would like my signature dive that I would say is like I do the double springboard swanton to the outside where I jump on one rope, jump to the other, and then flip onto them. Um, but other than that, that's what I would explain my move set as. I have the occasional like big man move. I have the Death Valley Brainbuster. Um, I do the Finley roll, Phantom Driver, stuff like that. I love tilt-a-whirls, where you spin them.
Yep.
Um, but other than that, it's mostly just kick them in the face and jump on top of them.
With with a Taekwondo background, does that help in like your training as far as wrestling goes, like striking wise?
I would say Taekwondo has helped me the most out of every sport because I think the hardest thing for new people to understand is like you have to let me hit you in some circumstances. And most people's reaction is to do this, which like that's okay sometimes, but like if the spot is like, hey, I'm gonna super kick you, you can't do this, I gotta hit you. Um, I would say when I first started, people hated me because I didn't know how to wrestling kick people, so I just kicked people. Um, if you go back and watch my earlier matches, you're like, dang, his strikes looked real because they were. Um, I used to just kick people in the side of the head, and I finally learned how to like control it better. But I had to learn backwards almost. Because I was taught like, hey, kick him in the face, kick him here, this and this and this, and I had to basically learn to soften the blow or to make it not as bad for him. But I would say that helped me the most out of any sport, because I came in with a lot of flexibility. I came in already knowing how to take a hit, because we used to spar and stuff like that. And I had a leg up on most people because most people who start can't get their leg as high as another human's face. Um, One of the things that I use in almost every match is a split. The drop down leapfrog spot that everyone does instead of a regular drop down, I do a split, and that makes me just that much more different. So I would say Taekwondo or any martial arts is probably the thing that helped me the most.
Okay. So like now that you've been A4 champion, you're the DWA champion, what would you like, what's your goal next? Like where as far as your career would you like to see yourself?
Well, I just made my action debut here in Georgia. So, really, the goal right now is to climb that ladder. I've been climbing Southern Honors ladder, which is the second biggest promotion in Georgia, I would say. So I'm on the two biggest, but right now my goal is to just climb those ladders. But um, I'm also trying to like reach my hand in the surrounding states right now. So I've been going to like New South and Alabama. I have a few connections in the Carolinas that I'm trying to reach out to. I have family in Memphis. So I'm trying to get down there. But really, the goal right now is to just be a main player at the ones I'm at right now, really.
Okay. Would you say like that TV would eventually be a goal for you?
Uh, I have reached out to Ring of Honor. I know a few people that have gotten on there, and I know I actually have been on the same card as the person who helps book the shows. So I've talked with them. I don't expect them to get back anytime soon. You know, they have everyone and their mom reaching out right now. So if I get picked to be on ROH, that'd be awesome. But if not, I'm just going to keep doing my thing till someone reaches out.
Fair enough. As a performer, is there anything that you've like been told to do or are trying to do to get noticed?
Um, that's a good question. I would probably say you don't want to fall into that like category of being the indie guy, I would say. Cause like when your matches are full of like all these crazy moves, but nothing really makes sense, they're just going to look right past you. I like Pride, actually not just me, but A4 in general, we pride ourselves on using these crazy big maneuvers and these crazy like sequences and high flying abilities, but we make it make sense. Um, I love AEW and stuff like that, but a lot of their matches fall into that category of like, I don't even know what story we're telling, or like this doesn't even make sense anymore. And WWE has started to shift into, I wouldn't say more of an indie style, but more of that like high flying, like fast style. So they're almost adapting in a way too. But um, I just try and slow down. Slower is always better, in my opinion. And I try and just make everything make sense to the best of my ability. Because I never ever want to see a post of like, I take a destroyer and then he takes a destroyer and then I take one and then we both get up and clothesline each other. Like, there, and then someone's like, this makes no sense. What the hell? Like, I would never want that.
Fair enough. Um, so I take it psychology is probably really important to you as a performer.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
psychology
you
big for me.
do you think it's a lost art, would you say?
Not lost. Because I also believe that wrestling is very subjective. So
Okay.
like I'm not a big fan of the lucha style. So like most matches I watch in Mexico, I don't really enjoy because it just looks like they're doing stuff just to do stuff, really. But that doesn't necessarily means it's wrong. Um, right? And like Japan style, they kick each other in the head without even putting their hands up, and then they just brush it off. Um, I don't like that either, but I mean, clearly it works because it gets reactions. The American style is more slow paced and it makes more of a story. Um, and like, it's all subjective, really, you know? So like if one guy has a super quick match where he does a bunch of stuff and they kind of no sell it, but they come back and the crowd's going crazy, like who am I to be like, dang, that was terrible? Like it got the crowd's reaction, you know? And that's really all at
Definitely.
the end of the day.
So like a big thing in wrestling is like legacy. Everybody talks legacy. What would like after the dust settles, what would you like your legacy to be like in your career?
I want first off to just be able to walk when I'm older. But if I can get past that, I honestly just want to be that wrestler who, like, my goal in wrestling almost is to change the mindset of how people think because I think the idea of like, I'm farther in the business than you, I can be an asshole to you is like the dumbest like mindset ever because I've had interactions with a lot of wrestlers that they almost don't treat me like a person because I'm new. And when the dust settles, I want people to be like, I met Grayson and he was so kind to me. And not only was he kind, he we had a great match together. You know what I mean? Like I want that to be my legacy. If I have a bunch of title reigns and people love me, that's sick, awesome. But really, I just want everyone I've ever had a match with or interacted with for them to just be like, he was like the most upstanding guy ever.
Okay. Um, what's it like training other wrestlers to, perform?
So I help train. I've had people call me a trainer at the fore, and I'm like, please don't. I'm still a student.
Okay.
Fox he kind of put my 2 cents in, um, and he lets me help. Um, I would say for me, I really just repeat a lot of what Fox says to me. And then I have come up with my own opinions or like my own analogies and stuff that I use. I usually only teach moves or like help people with sequences or stuff like that. I teach a lot of the basics, but psychology wise, that's mainly Fox. And then if anyone asks me psychology, I usually just repeat stuff that I've heard from Fox, which in turn he is just repeating from his trainer. Trying to remember his name. I can't remember Fox's trainer's name right now. Um, do you know what I'm talking about? I can't remember his name.
I can't remember either. I've
Uh,
done a lot of research on Fox because lately I've been doing a lot of interviews with guys from his school. So I've been trying to, but I can't remember the trainer's name off the top of my head now.
it's like right there. Uh,
Let's
but
see.
he's basically just repeating stuff from him, and Fox has come up with his own like psychology ideas and stuff like that. So, at first you kind of just believe everything that your trainer says, and then Fox always tells me, he's like, not everything I say is correct. He's like, this is just my interpretation of wrestling. So mainly I'm just helping out with moves. Oh, it's Mr. Hughes, by the
Yep,
way.
I was about to say that. I just
Mr.
looked it up.
Um, I met Mr. Hughes once. He was cool. But um, you know, the more you grow as a wrestler, the more ideas you have about psychology and how to put your matches together. But right now, I'm just kind of repeating stuff that Fox says, and he does things that I don't do, and I do things that he doesn't do. So I'm starting to create my own opinion about wrestling.
Okay. Um, we've talked a lot about AR Fox. What do you think he means to the business itself?
I think Fox is like the underground legend. Like people who know him really love him, and like from a fan perspective, they love his work. Um, but I think people who don't really know Fox or only know some of his work really like talk down on him. Because I've had people hear that I'm from the four and they're like, oh, Fox is sick and like he's like the best wrestler ever. But then I've met people who don't really know Fox and they're like, oh, you're from the four? Man, y'all are just a bunch of pothead, like high flying, no psychology, making sense wrestlers. So it really just depends like how much do you know Fox, right? Um, but I just think he's like one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. Um, Not only does everything make sense that he does in the ring, but everything he does is just inhumanly impossible. Um, so I just think he's crazy, man. He's awesome. And he's so kind too. He's kind, he's chill, he's just everyone he's ever met just thinks he's like the coolest person ever. So
If anybody wanted to train with Fox or at the A4, how would they go about getting in touch for the program?
you walk in. Um,
Walk in?
yep, walk in and you can either sit and watch us train and we'll let you. Or if you want, you could be like, hey, I'm thinking about signing up. And, you know, like Fox might ask you to be like, all right, cool. You want to get in the ring and tussle around a little bit and see how it feels? We had a kid come in the other day and it was his tour day. And I had him taking bumps and stuff like that on my tour day. I walked in and took leg drops and sentons from all the guys. I did a drill and I just fell in love with it. But some people walk in and they try it and they take a bump and they go, damn, this hurts. And then some people come in and take a bump and go, I want to do this. So it's different for everyone.
You know, I've never heard of a trainer giving you like a toe in the water, so to speak, a little test of it. So it's nice that Fox would allow, for guys to be like, hey, before you sign up and I take a bunch of your money, like most promoters do, to do that is genuine, and you don't hear that a lot.
No, and that's where it goes back to like the whole Fox is just chill. He's in it for the love of the game. And like we have people come in from Nightmare and PCW and other schools who technically haven't paid, but they come in and they train a day or two. And we had two Nightmare Factory guys come in the other day, and me and Fox showed them how to do a crucifix pin and a crucifix driver. We did a bunch of drills with them. We showed them how to do a slingshot suplex. So we just showed them a little bit past the basics. You know what I mean?
Have you ever worked with anybody in the Nightmare, factory or at the Nightmare Factory at all?
Yeah, I've worked a few of them. I fought Chip Schuyler in DWA back when he was down here. I work with Lev a lot at Southern Honor, um, part of the Faithful. And then Me and Warden have teamed before. Uh, I've wrestled. Technically, Yaki did go to the Nightmare Factory, so I've wrestled Yaki. I'm trying to think who else. Um, I've wrestled. Mm, that's pretty. Oh, Parker Lee. I wrestled Parker Lee a lot. I think that's it though. I know a lot of them, but
Okay.
as for the ones that I've worked or worked with, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Um, before we wrap it up, a fun question I like to ask is Mount Rushmore because everybody has an opinion, um, and nobody's technically right nor wrong. Do you have like your Mount Rushmore that you'd say?
The Mount Rushmore is difficult for me because it's like, are we just talking about overall wrestler or are we talking about like a specific thing? Because like if you were to be like, hey, what's your Mount Rushmore of technical wrestlers? My list is going to be different. So are we talking about overall, like best?
I I would say I always categorize it. I mean, it sounds a little funny, but like your favorite in a way, like your four favorite, like you think they are the greatest.
I think Sean, mainly for his Sean for his in ring work. He can, do stuff on the fly very well. His charisma in the ring, his actual wrestling. AJ, um, he kind of ramped it up with his more indie style. His heel work is amazing. I think all of his moves and his psychology are just great. Um, I don't know. I want to say Fox. Like I know that sucks because it's just like, oh, he's just my trainer. But it's like he really is just like so underrated. And like I think if he got the time of day, um, he would be one of the best wrestlers, like seen as one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Um, and then I don't know. I guess Van Dam. Because Van Dam, like his heel work's really good, his face work was really good. Um, he was super innovative. Um, his attire was sick. I remember when I started, I had airbrush gear. Didn't look nearly as good as his, but his innovation, his style and everything like that, I just think he's one of the best. So those are my four.
I like it. I Van Damme is one that I don't think gets talked about enough. And like you got as a kid, how many people have done a 5-star frog splash off of everything?
That was one of my finishers at one point. And actually not because of Van Dam, it was because of Eddie, which I could probably, no offense, I could probably trade Fox out for Eddie Guerrero, um, just because he's contributed more to the business. But Eddie Guerrero, um, same thing, his style, his charisma, his work, everything like that. His crowd work was amazing. But um, yeah, I did the frog splash at one point. I've had a lot of finishers, if you can't tell.
What's I know this we'll make this a bonus question, but what's it like trying to figure out a finishing maneuver?
Oh my gosh, it's like the most difficult thing in the world. Um, all the guys, like all the new guys, are like, "What do you think of this move as a finish and this and this and this?" I always tell them, I'm like, "Okay, one, does it make sense for your character, right? So like, and not just your character, but like what you actually look like. Like I know some dudes who are this big who show me a move where they have to pick the guy up, and I'm like, that's cool, but like, dude, can you do that after a 20-minute match? Like, you know what I mean? Like, can you do that? Not barely get through the move, I'm talking about, can you still hit it like clean and make it look crazy? Um, like my first finisher was a split-legged moonsault. Um, and I kind of bumped that down to a signature because it got a pop, but it was also like I don't think it was big enough to be a finish. Um, and then I moved to the totally other end. I used a variation of the J driller and realized I'm way too small to pick people up every match. Um, I still have all these moves in my arsenal. I just don't use them as a finish. I use the frog splash, but I don't jump very high, and I didn't get a lot of impact like Eddie. Trying to think what else I used. Um, I used the I used a move I call catch a vibe, which was like a standing double stomp off the top, which I still use. I transitioned to what I use now, which is I call it the skull piercer. It's where they're on their hands and knees, and I step off their butt and I double stomp them in the back of the head. And then I just adopted a new one, which is the Warrior's Way from low key, where they're vertical with the buckle, and I double stomp right on top of their chest. I basically use those three as my finishers. The main one is the step up double stomp, but the reason that I landed on the double stomp over all these other moves is because I can hit it so cleanly, make it look crazy, and I might hurt the guy a little bit, but he'll get over it. Um, so I always tell these new guys like what makes sense with your character, what can you do super cleanly and super like make the audience like be like, wow, that was crazy. um and do you have a clever name for it and stuff like that? Because I always tell guys anything can be a finish. I mean, Big Show got a punch over as a finish. It's how do you present the move? So like AR Fox, I've seen him use a split-legged moonsault as a regular move. I use it as like a signature. So it really just depends how you want to use it. Like Dolph Ziggler uses a super kick, and that's like a transitional move for most people. So it just kind of depends how do you want to present this move.
Okay. Um, Last thing I usually do is try to end on like a word of advice for somebody that'd like to be in your position or, on their way to your position. Do you have any advice for somebody trying to get there?
You know, I don't know if I'm in the best position to give people advice, but I think I see a lot of guys around me. Uh, their issue is that they shoot themselves in their own foot, basically, whether it's due to they say the wrong thing in front of the wrong person, they tweet the wrong thing on Twitter. Like I just think, or people like rub someone the wrong way for whatever reason. Wrestling is a sensitive business and it's ego filled. Um, I think that you need to put your ego aside and always be humble. Um, and you need to be everyone's friend. That doesn't mean you have to like everyone you ever encounter, but I think you need to initially treat everyone as a friend until something happens, basically. I don't have any heat with anybody. I like everyone. I don't know if everyone likes me, but um, I just think that I mean we're play fighting in tights. Like it's not that serious. I mean seriously. So I think that you just shake everyone's hand and you make friends along the way. And if there's beef, so to say, squash it immediately. Don't let it get so big that it gets to Twitter and to the fans. Like it's just not that big of a deal.
Fair enough. It's probably a smart thing, definitely in this day and age where everything you say can be taken or misconstrued. So, and everybody has heat with everybody, whether it's in the wrestling business or not in the wrestling business. Um, and in the end, cooler heads definitely prevail.
Yeah. I try and just take that like chill approach. And if you don't know something, like I've seen guys get in trouble for cussing on shows. If you don't know something, like if you don't know if I can cuss or do this or this, ask. Just ask. I over communicate. I probably annoy most of the promoters I'm with, but I over communicate rather than get shot in the foot later. I also believe that if you weren't like the last wrestler to wrestle, like if you wrestled like 2 hours before the show ends, you should help break down. I don't care how ego filled you are or how big you think you are. You should always help break down, whether it's the ring, whether it's pick up trash, whether it's, I don't know, sweep, throw away the broken tables, stuff like that. Now, if you were the last match on the card, that's different. But if you wrestled like an hour, 2 hours before the show ends and you're not hurt, like go help and do your part. The only time I would say you don't do that is if they're paying ring crew, but ring crew usually doesn't get paid. So go help out.
Fair enough. Before we go, are there any social medias or upcoming events you'd like to plug?
Um, Southern Honor, the 25th is coming up. Um, so go to that. WWA4 is having its annual Wicked on Halloween. Um, Title will be on the line there. So show up to the fort. It's free. Um, and as of right now, that's pretty much it.
Social media like handles, any of those that you got that you want to let fans know?
Young Gun Pierce at Twitter, and then just the Grayson Pierce on Instagram. I still have 1,000 followers, and I think that's heinous, but it's all right.
We'll get it to grow. We'll get it
Yeah.
to grow. That's the goal always. I just want to say, lastly, thank you for coming on here, taking time out of your busy schedule. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, maybe we'll have you on for a part two.
That'd be sick. Yeah, this is actually my first interview, so
That's great to hear. I was Eddie Hendricks told me I was his first. There's been a couple guys that I've messaged and they're like, I've never done a podcast before or interview. I was like, well, I'm glad to, like I told you off camera, it's kind of the point of the podcast and to get your guys' stories out there. So, if I can help, I appreciate it.
yeah, I told you off camera I had a rough weekend. It's not because anything went wrong. Um, it's just God, I'm hurting from all the wrestling. I had a hardcore match against Cav Canyon at the four, and then I had to wrestle the next day against Cody Fluffman. So um, I'm just battered and bruised, and it's nice to get my story out a little bit. But you know, I was happy to be here. I'd love to do it again. Um, and I hope that your podcast grows, man. Seriously.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon. We'll end it off and we'll see you soon.
All right, cool.
All right.